which, after the pyramids, there's the Saqqara Pyramid. The Step Pyramid, which is the first pyramid in history. It was built in the year 2700. The ancient Egyptians. They spent 100 years experimenting to build a complete pyramid. A pyramid with straight sides, without the steps like the Step Pyramid. So over 100 years, they built dozens of pyramids, some of which were never completed. Some of them were slanted. Some of them had foundations that couldn't support the structure. So cracks appeared in the foundations and they collapsed. There were many experiments over 100 years until they finally managed to build a complete pyramid. The first complete pyramid ever built was the Pyramid of King Sneferu, who was the founder of the 4th dynasty and the father of King Khufu. The view we're looking at right now is, of course, one we all recognize, the Pyramids of Giza. The first pyramid on the right is Khufu's pyramid, then in the middle is Khafu's, and then Nak, and these are the pyramids of Menkaur's wives. Yes, the one who built Khufu's pyramid was the great architect Himiunu. And we discovered his tomb around the pyramid, and this is the statue we found inside the tomb. This, of course, is in response to people who talk nonsense. They claim that the pyramids were built by aliens or beings from other planets. That's absolutely not true. The one who built the pyramid is right here in front of you, Engineer Himiunu. An Egyptian engineer who looks just like us, and he doesn't have 3 eyes or 4 ears. Egypt has more than 140 pyramids. But the largest of the pyramids is the Pyramid of Khufu, followed by the Pyramid of Khafur, and the most famous pyramids are the Pyramids of Giza. The Old Kingdom lasted from the 1st dynasty to the 6th dynasty up to 2181 BC, and that was at the end of the 6th dynasty. The last ruler of the 6th dynasty was a king named King Pepi II. Pepi II ruled for 99 years. He took over the rule when he was 1 year old under the guardianship of his father, and he was relieved of his duties under the guardianship of his mother and uncle. And he died when he was 100 years old. So he ruled for 99 years. As a result of Pepi II's long reign, things started to fall apart. The administrative systems and government institutions became weak during his reign. They became bloated and aged, just like the king himself. So by the end of Pepi II's reign, the country entered an era of chaos. During this chaotic era, the central government collapsed. The unity of the country was shattered. Each regional governor separated with his own region and declared himself a prince or king over his territory. And the great state fragmented into small, warring mini-states. This period is known as the First Intermediate Period, which covers dynasties 7 to 10. That era was extremely difficult. We have some writings from that time. For example, one interesting text says that the prince, who once owned palaces and many, golden furniture and a golden mirror. Now, he can only find the surface of the water to look at his reflection when he wants to comb his hair. Security was non-existent. Thieves and gangs spread everywhere, digging up and breaking into tombs, looting them. That's why not much has reached us, only a little. Just a few tombs from the Old Kingdom. And we have almost no remains of the great kings who built the pyramids. At the beginning of the year 2055 BC, there was a very powerful prince in Thebes named Mentuhotep. It was Mentuhotep II who managed to reunite the provinces and bring all of Egypt back under his rule. He wore the double crown, and a new era began, the Middle Kingdom. The Middle Kingdom was a time of prosperity, and it was distinguished as an era when agriculture flourished. The state was an agricultural one, just as the Old Kingdom was known for building the pyramids. The Middle Kingdom was notable for the prosperity and advancement of agriculture, as well as the agricultural structures that served the farmers and controlled the water. The pyramids of the Middle Kingdom were made of mud brick. Most, if not all, of them were located in the Fayum region. This period includes the 11th and 12th dynasties. Unfortunately, by 1710 BC, at the end of the 12th dynasty, the country began to fall apart again and entered another dark age, known as the Second Intermediate Period. The Second Intermediate Period lasted for a while, from the 13th and 14th dynasties up to the 17th dynasty. During this time of weakness, Egypt declined and the country fragmented into small states. Very powerful Asian tribes seized the opportunity, warrior tribes, and they invaded northern Egypt and advanced south into Egypt as far as Asiut. They even reached northern Sohag. This was the first foreign occupation of Egypt. The Egyptians called them the foreign rulers. The truth of the Hyksos. The Hyksos, Heka. It means a special ruler. Private means foreigner, especially the Hyksos. This is the Hyksos invasion that lasted in Egypt for about 150 years. At first, the Hyksos tried to get close to the Egyptians and their gods, but soon they turned their backs on the Egyptians, started persecuting them, and showed contempt for their gods. They built temples for the Hyksos gods, with Baal at the forefront, depicted as a donkey. They showed contempt for the Egyptian gods and persecuted the priests. So, in the year 1550 BC, the Hyksos king Apophis, or Abu-Phis, which is believed to be Abu Faz in Arabic, sent a message to King Seqenenre, or Prince Seqenenre, the Prince of Thebes. He was provoking him, saying, "I am in Avaris," which was the Hyksos capital in the Delta. Avaris is now Tel El Dabeh in the Sharqiya Governorate. He told him, "I am in Sharqiya," or "I am in Avaris." The sounds of the hippopotamuses in the sacred lake in Thebes are disturbing me at night and depriving me of sleep. So I cannot sleep because of the hippopotamuses in your city, Thebes. So kill the hippopotamuses. Of course, those hippopotamuses are sacred in the sacred lake, so this was basically a declaration of war. Naturally, Seqenenre realized he was a brave and strong prince. He understood the Hyksos intentions, so he immediately began gathering his army and marched north to confront the Hyksos and liberate the country. Yeah. King Seqenenre. We call him the Martyr King. And Seqenenre means Are strengthens me, or the power of the god Are. Unfortunately, he was brutally killed in that battle. The mummy of King Seqenenre, or the great martyr King Seqenenre. And you can see it was hastily mummified because of that. And because it was done in a hurry, we find that the mummification isn't excellent. The mummification is very minimal or extremely weak. Here we see the king took an axe blow to his forehead, and that blow was enough for his brain to scatter through it. Then he also took a spear to the other side of his forehead. Those two strikes were enough to kill him. But unfortunately, the Hyksos enemies took revenge on him out of intense anger and hatred. How could an Egyptian, one of their subjects, rebel against them? So they kept hitting him even after he died, after he took his last breath. So here we see a sword strike under his eye. And here we see a gash under his right eye. There's also one behind his ear. There's one at the back, too. Another axe blow. Yeah, of course. I mean, it was a gruesome death for a great king. This is a depiction of what he looked like when he was alive, wearing the blue crown. That blue crown was only worn by warrior kings in battle. It's called the kepresh, or the blue crown. The war crown, he dies wearing it. King Seqenenre takes command of the army. After him, his son Kamose also dies and is killed in battle, so after them, the youngest son of Seqenenre, the young Ahmose, takes over. This is King Ahmose, who takes command of the army and leads the Egyptians in the war against the Hyksos. Ahmose chased the Hyksos to the north, reaching their capital at Avaris, which is now Tel El Dabeh in the Sharqiya Governorate. He besieged it for a long time until they surrendered, and their remaining forces fled from the eastern borders into Sinai, and he pursued them into Sinai. He continued to chase the remnants in Sinai and pursued them all the way to Palestine. When he reached Palestine, he returned to celebrate the liberation of Egypt and the dawn of a new era of freedom, the expulsion of the Hyksos, and the cleansing of the country from their traces. The ancient Egyptians destroyed and erased every trace of the Hyksos in Egypt. That's why we don't know much about the Hyksos, because we don't have information about them since the ancient Egyptians deliberately erased everything that could remind us of or point to the Hyksos. This is the mummy of Ahmose, and these are his statues. This is the battle axe, the real war axe of Ahmose, the actual one he fought with, and this is his dagger. We found them with his mummy. Yeah, Ahmose started the 18th dynasty and the New Kingdom, also known as the Egyptian Empire, which lasted from the 18th to the 20th dynasty. And this was the greatest period in the history of ancient Egypt, when Egypt was an empire. And when we talk about the Egyptian Empire, we have to mention the founder of the Egyptian Empire, the Great King, or the King of Kings, or the Great Emperor, Thutmose III. Thutmose III is also famous as the Smiling King because, as you can see, all his statues have a very beautiful smile. Even when we saw his mummy, it had the same smile. And this is a depiction of what Thutmose III looked like during his life. This is a map of Egypt during the reign of Thutmose III. As you can see, it stretches north to Anatolia in Turkey, up to the borders of Iraq, and even includes the area of Mosul. A large part of the Babylonian Empire is included, as well as the entire Assyrian Empire, Palestine, Syria, and Phoenicia, and it even extends here to the Libyan borders. And in the south, it extends into Ethiopia and up to the borders of Somalia. Thutmose established this empire through sweat and blood. Thutmose led 55 campaigns against the Levant and Ethiopia. Every summer, he would launch a military campaign in the Levant, and every winter, he would launch a military campaign against Ethiopia. Thutmose was not only a great warrior, but also a brilliant politician. He followed a policy that, for the first time in the ancient world, someone had adopted. When he entered a kingdom and defeated it, he wouldn't eliminate the king or the prince of that kingdom. On the contrary, he would keep him in his position and make him swear an oath of loyalty, so that he would remain one of his followers and stay loyal to him. Then he would take the king's children and bring them to Egypt. Yes, he would take the king's children, but not as prisoners. On the contrary, these children, or rather, the children from all the kingdoms he conquered, as you can see on the map. He would take them and gather them in the military capital, Memphis, which is now called MIT Rahina. He provided them with the best education available in ancient times, which was the Egyptian education. Back then, Egypt was like Cambridge or Harvard today. It was the center of civilization and the source of culture for the entire world. So he would provide them with, you could say, a royal education in royal palaces and royal temples, raising them as Egyptians, teaching them the ancient Egyptian language, the ancient Egyptian religion, and Egyptian civilization. This policy was very smart because, first of all, it guaranteed the loyalty of their fathers. Of course, the fathers were worried about their children, so this ensured their loyalty and prevented any acts of betrayal. Yeah, their children were in Egypt. The second, and even more important, point is that after the fathers grew old and died, or stepped down from power, these children would be sent back to their kingdoms to rule under his authority. And of course, they returned deeply influenced by Egyptian culture and civilization. So they became a very, very strong line of defense for the Egyptian Empire on behalf of the pharaoh. This policy helped the Egyptian Empire remain as it was, just as Thutmose had established it, for more than 100 years after his death. Even during Egypt's periods of weakness, like the time of Akhenaten when Egypt was so weak it couldn't send armies to defend its possessions in Asia and Africa, these princes and their sons remained completely loyal to Egypt and the pharaoh. The era of the empire. We see this in the 18th dynasty and after the 19th dynasty. Of course, in the 19th dynasty, Everyone who ruled Egypt held the title of Ramses, with Ramses II, the great king, at the forefront. And the 20th dynasty, up until 1077 BC, which marks the end of the 20th dynasty. We see the third intermediate period, during which the country falls apart and becomes prey to foreign invasions. The Assyrians invade Egypt, and there is a Kushite invasion as well, Kush being in northern Sudan, where they invade Egypt. The Libyans invade Egypt. The Persians invade Egypt up until 664. 664. Then comes the era of the 26th dynasty, which is called the Late Period. The era of the 26th dynasty is considered a revival of the strong, powerful Egyptian civilization and its refined art. The level of art during the 26th dynasty rivals the very high, sophisticated standards that existed in the Old Kingdom. But unfortunately, this era doesn't last long. With the end of the 30th dynasty, yes, Egypt falls prey to the third Persian invasion. Egypt was invaded more than 3 times as well. But in 332 BC, Alexander the Great entered and defeated the Persians, liberating Egypt from their rule. And this marks the end of what is called ancient Egyptian history. In the year 332. That is the beginning of the Greek era in Egypt and the end of ancient Egyptian history. This division that we see here, the Old, Middle, and New Kingdoms. The Late Period, 30 dynasties, we didn't come up with that, that's how it was classified. There is something very important I want to point out. The word family does not mean that they are one family, his son, his children, his wife, and his brother. No, here, dynasty means a group of rulers. We don't really know why Manetho grouped certain rulers together and called them a dynasty. And then he would start a new dynasty. For example, after the 18th dynasty comes the 19th dynasty. So why did he end the 18th dynasty and start the 19th? Sometimes we see that the last ruler of one dynasty is actually the son of the first ruler of the next dynasty. Yet, Manetho still put one in one dynasty and the other in a different dynasty. We don't know, because once again, let me remind you that we don't have the actual book Egyptiaca. What we have are excerpts from it quoted by Greek historians. And these excerpts didn't mention why. Or what were the reasons that made Manetho divide Egyptian history into 30 dynasties? And what was his method for choosing which kings belonged to each dynasty? Yeah. In the end, I want to thank Manetho, of course, and we all thank Manetho, because without him, we wouldn't have known anything at all about this history, these great kings, and these tremendous achievements. Thank you all very much for listening, and I hope that this episode... Oh, yes, it's good, and I hope you enjoyed it. 1,000 thanks.
Thank you very much, Engineer Tarek. This was a dense episode. There's a lot of information, and it's going to take us some time to process and understand it all. I think when we watch this episode, you'll probably watch it once, twice, even 3 times, because the amount of information in it is huge. And we still have so many questions about ancient Egyptian civilization. And this, God willing, will be the topic of our upcoming episodes, where we'll talk about Egyptian religion. We'll also discuss the social structure or the social divisions of the Egyptian people. We'll talk about what made ancient Egyptian civilization stand out from other civilizations. There are many topics, God willing, that we'll continue to explore together here on Open Mind. My regards to you all, and I hope to see you again soon, God willing.
Thank you, Dr. Bahi. Thank you all, and thanks to our viewers. I hope you enjoyed this episode. See you in another episode, God willing. Thank you. Many thanks.
Thank you.